Hello and welcome to the Warframe tier list. Today we'll be going over Nezha, and first things first, let's go into the builds. So with Nezha, I have two separate builds, one general purpose build, and one build tailored towards disruption. This first build is a Nourish build, which is nice as it allows you to AoE spread viral just for existing, and it also gives you free viral on your weapons, allowing you to mod for corrosive and viral. Not only that, it effectively gives you infinite energy, especially on Nezha, as his second ability gives you energy and health orbs, and the health orbs get converted to even more energy through Equilibrium. This is a health tank build using Arcane Blessing for 1200 more armor, health conversion for 1350 armor, again very easy to keep up thanks to his second ability Blazing Chakram, giving you about 2100 max health and 1600 armor. This means that with those insane health and armor values, combined with Warding Halo giving you 90% damage reduction and adaptation, you are incredibly tanky. That being said, you can make it even tankier by dropping Arcane Avenger, which is very good on Nezha because whenever you take shield damage with Warding Halo up, it counts as health damage, proccing Arcane Avenger even if you're running a shield gate build. So Arcane Avenger is very strong on Nezha, but if you just want to be absurdly tanky, you could take this off for any armor arcane, like Arcane Guardian for 900 armor just for existing, or Arcane Ultimatum for 1200 armor, but you have to go for finisher kills. Either one of these, you can scale up to 3 hours in a survival steel path mission very easily. If you want to scale even higher than that, well, just take Reaping Chakram off and Archon Vitality, and also Natural Talent, and now you can run a triple Umbra build. Now when you run a triple Umbra build, you have 400 more max health, and also I think 500 more max armor. Let me see. I have to take like everything off. God, I have to take like everything off. Yeah, so you get about 480 more armor and 400 more max health. So with a build like this, you would be incredibly tanky. Obviously, the only downside is you have to Umbra Forma him, and probably Forma him even more, like you would probably have to Forma this slot just to make everything work. As for why Nourish, well, I've already explained, but Nourish also gives a CC whenever you get hit, and it also spreads the viral in the 17.4 meters, which is why I'm running Stretch. If you don't subsume Nourish, you don't really need range on his kit at all. As for the second build, it is an Expedite Suffering build for Disruption. Expedite Suffering is very good on Nezha. Well, it's very fun on Nezha, as Blazing Chakram with this build, once you have everything procced, from Growing Power, Molt Augmented, and Madurai, means that you have 422% ability strength. This means that Blazing Chakram will make enemies take 4.2 times more damage, which double dips on your slash procs, and then you can use Expedite Suffering, which will also double dip on the Blazing Chakram damage vulnerability, leading your slash procs to do absolutely absurd damage numbers. In Disruption, I would suggest using Controlled Slide to disable Nezha's passive, as you don't want to accidentally slide into the demos and get purged. One last thing, Safeguard is a very good augment on Nezha, as you can use it on defense objectives, such as Excavators, making him a very good defense frame, as a second option outside of like a Limbo, and a Limbo or a Frost, or a Gara. And you can also use it on some Bounties to also defend those objectives. So Safeguard in the right circumstances is incredibly useful for those specific game modes. As for the rest of the kit, the primary is just whatever AoE weapon you prefer. Tonkor, Brahma, Zar, etc., something like the Bubonico also works very well, as it is another weapon that has a high crit multiplier with a low crit chance buff, meaning that Arcane Avenger makes this thing do a lot of damage. Speaking of, the Nucor is the obvious secondary of choice for the same exact reasons. Not only can you run a corrosive Nucor thanks to Nourish, but you're running Avenger, so you can make this thing just pump out damage. Melee is of course the Praetos for the parkour velocity and sprint speed, but feel free to use whatever you want. And focus school of choice is Madurai for sling strength for 40% ability strength, Phoenix Talons for a damage buff, and power transfer for 50% casting speed is always nice. Alternatively, you could use Yunaro for Stone Skin for 200 armor, which doesn't do too much, but it is something, and access to an armor strip to allow you to scale forever. There's also Poise, which gives you Prime Surefooted effect. This isn't entirely necessary on Nezha thanks to his third ability giving you Prime Surefooted, but in the rare chance that an enemy breaks your third ability and you instantly get CC'd, this can save your life still. And last but not least is just a Panzer with the standard build with 2 synth mods equipped. Now we'll be discussing Nezha in relation to 4 separate topics. Firstly is KPM, secondly is survivability, thirdly is viability, and finally how fun he is to play. All of this data is sampled from a 1-hour solo Steel Path bot run with no Spectres, on call, and of course no Archon Shards. Now let's begin with the first topic, Nezha's KPM. Now Nezha has decent KPM for a weapon frame. The reason for this is because his second ability applies a damage vulnerability debuff to all targets, allowing you to kill tank your enemies like Bombards, Heavy Gunners, and Xmas units very quickly. Not only that, but his first ability gives you a speed buff, which does slightly increase your KPM as you can get from point A to point B quicker to get to the enemies quicker to kill. On top of this, you can freely run Nourish and AoE spread viral even if you're going a shield tank build thanks to his Warding Halo, making shield damage count as health damage because of the Warding Halo buff. This means that Nourish is AoE spreading viral constantly, and you can freely run Avenger even on a shield tank build, which both of these is very, very strong. Then there's also the benefit of Nezha having incredibly high survivability, and of course when you have really high survivability, that does increase your KPM as you have to spend less time keeping yourself alive. So all in all, I will give Nezha a flat A rank for his KPM. Now moving on to the second topic is survivability, and I really shouldn't have to stay on this topic for long at all either. Nezha's survivability is insane. Warding Halo is incredibly strong as, well, it's just a flat 90% DR buff, but not only that, it gives you immunity to status effects. This means that you won't be taking damage from heat, slash, or electricity, or random things like that. Things that deal a lot of damage will no longer damage you at all. Not only that, but thanks to his third ability giving you Prime Surefooted effect, this gives newer players who don't have Prime Surefooted access to, well, Prime Surefooted. And having the ability to not get knocked down greatly increases your survivability, because now you won't get knocked down with no counterplay and just dying without being able to either heal yourself or shield gate yourself if you're going a shield gate build. So even if you're going a shield gate build, his third ability is very, very useful because A, it gives you immunity to status effects, which even on a shield gate build is good for being able to ignore heat procs, as those are incredibly annoying, and also giving you Prime Surefooted if you don't have access to it. Not only that, but on cast it gives you 3 seconds of invincibility, which is also incredibly useful because this means that you won't get caught in loops of pressing an ability to shield gate and then instantly having to shield gate again. So Nezha, regardless of how you play him, be it a shield gate build or a health tank build, is incredibly strong. Especially due to his low base shields, you can even run a health tank plus shield gate combo build, such as the one that I showed in the beginning of the video. Nezha also doesn't have to run a bunch of defensive mods like most other health tanks do in this game, and if you're not doing Endurance Steel Path, you don't even have to run aDaPtAtIoN. You can get away with just health conversion, or you can flip-flop it and you don't have to run health conversion and you can just run aDaPtAtIoN. On base star chart, you honestly don't need either of them. Like, Nezha is incredibly tanky in pretty much any content of the game. I will give Nezha's survivability a flat S rank. Now moving on to his viability, and his viability is also incredibly high because he's good in every single game mode. Like, even survival, all of that, he's like okay, he's tanky, he has decent KPM, good mobility. damage debuffs to kill tankier enemies. And like normal exterminates and stuff, he's also good there because, well, there it's mostly just mobility is king unless you happen to be a nuke frame. And he's also good in content where it's hard to be good in, like excavators and random stuff like bounties, defense, etc., etc. Thanks to the safeguard augment allowing you to keep defense objectives alive significantly easier. This is mostly important for excavation missions where you can give the excavator like 3 seconds of invincibility. So if you catch it in time, you can cast safeguard on the excavator whenever you see a Blitz Eximus, allowing it to just survive through it, which is just not possible outside of Nezha giving it safeguard. So without just harping on it for too long, he's just good everywhere. So I will give Nezha an A+ rank for his viability, which is very, very good, as viability is one of the hardest things to have a high rank in. Now moving on to the final topic, how fun is Nezha to play, and if you asked me a couple months ago, I would have said he was pretty bland. However, now that I've given him another shot, I do think he is more fun than I previously gave him credit for. See, I used to drop his first ability in favor of keeping Divine Spears, as Divine Spears used to be a pretty decent CC tool, and I just preferred it over his first ability. But now that Overguard exists and half the enemies in the game are just CC immune, and Divine Spears was already kind of iffy because it costs a lot of energy, it just had like an okay base range, and it also made it really annoying to headshot enemies. It was already like kind of iffy if it was actually worth keeping. But now that Eximus and Overguard exist, I don't think it's really ever worth keeping at all. And this allows you to just always use his first ability, Firewalker, which is just a fun ability to use thanks to the movement speed. Not only that, but outside of Disruption, you can freely use his passive without like feeling the need to use controlled slide so you don't accidentally kill yourself to the Demolus. And his passive is also pretty fun to use, and he's just a fun frame to just run through missions as. So in the end, I'll give him a B+ rank for his fun. In conclusion, Nezha is an A+ tier Warframe who is very strong for newer players and players who are just starting the Steel Path. Not only that, if you're one of those people who prefer to only play one Warframe, Nezha is a strong candidate due to the fact that he has a large array of strong builds that allow him to perform well in almost every single game mode in the entire game.
What's a short video version of a one-liner? I don't know. Like if you were to make a compilation of how stupid this person is, this would be in there.